The French niche fragrance house of Frederic Malle is 20 years old, which is an amazing achievement, and it's great to see how they've grown over the years. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at Promise, which is a fragrance in the Desert Gems collection. Stay tuned to hear my thoughts. Hey, what's going on, guys? Raj here. I hope all of you out there are doing well. So Frederic Malle, he has a fragrance which he made in collaboration with Dominique Ropion. This fragrance was released in 2017, and Dominique Ropion is a perfumer who Frederic Malle has worked with quite a few times. The fragrances that Mr. Ropion has created for Frederic Malle are as follows: Carnal Flower, Cologne Indelible, Geranium pour Monsieur, Portrait of a Lady, Superstitious, The Night, Une Fleur de Cassis, and Vetiver Extraordinaire. Promise is a really interesting fragrance, and in the heart of this scent are two rose notes, one from Bulgaria and one from Turkey. I feel actually that there's a lot more going on in this fragrance, and I don't feel like those are the main notes on my skin. But it is a fragrance that smells fruity, it smells a little bit smoky, has earthy notes, there's a sweetness in this fragrance, and it is definitely one that has a lot of impact. It's a very powerful scent. The note breakdown for this one: in the top there is pink pepper, rosemary, and an apple accord. In the middle notes there is Bulgarian rose oil, Turkish rose absolute, and clove oil. And in the base notes there is patchouli, ambroxan, labdanum, cypriol, and castoreum. In terms of occasions, where would you wear this fragrance? Well, you know, a lot of people will say you can wear fragrances whenever you like, and I do agree. With that. But if I was to pick the perfect occasion with this one, I would say it really suits an evening wear. That's where I think it would shine the most. In terms of seasons, I think this is probably best to be worn in cooler weather. You can get away with this in cold weather too, but in warm weather, where I have actually tested this fragrance, the scent really does soften up actually with the warmth of the body, rather than going the other way and really making it scream off the skin. I feel like the warmth of your skin almost tames this fragrance. So it's an interesting one when it comes to seasons. And in terms of gender, I do feel that this is a unisex fragrance. I think, yeah, absolutely a man and woman could pull this off equally. In terms of the performance of this fragrance, this is a really long-lasting fragrance. You don't need to spray too much of this. It lasts all day. It definitely projects off the skin for the first few hours. And yeah, it's just relentless, really, this scent, in terms of how long it lasts, the whole performance. So what do I get from Promise? Well, in the opening, it really comes out super strong. It is actually a fragrance that can be quite overwhelming to start with. I don't really recommend spraying too much in a small area. I think it's best to let this one breathe. Give it a bit more air and maybe do two sprays on the wrist, or maybe just one on the chest, one towards the back of the neck. I would say be easy on the trigger with this fragrance. The fact that this fragrance lasts such a long time definitely helps when it comes to the value of this fragrance. 100 ml will cost you £245. 50 ml is 168. You can also get a 10 ml refill spray for £48. And as I said, you don't need to spray too much of this, so this is going to last you a really long time. And actually, maybe the price isn't so bad when you take that into consideration. So what does Promise smell like? It really comes out super strong, very powerful, very noticeable. And you have to be the type of person who is comfortable with the more stronger scents. For me, actually, what this really starts with is the patchouli note comes through. It's a little bit smoky, a little bit oily, and a little bit leathery as well. It's not too earthy. There is a bit of sweetness, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later. But I feel like this patchouli note, it feels familiar to me. I feel like I've smelled it in Monsieur, but in Monsieur, it was in a much higher concentration and much more thicker and fuller. In Promise, it is partnered up with a few sweeter, fruity notes. One thing I've noticed that Frederic Malle has been doing recently is introducing fruity notes into his fragrances. Well, what I mean by that is more kind of gourmandish, almost sickly sweet accords. Sometimes I guess that is can be a bad thing, and sometimes that is a good thing. For example, in Music for a While, you've got this thick, syrupy pineapple note. In The Moon, you've got the raspberry, berry accords, and lychee. And in this one, you've got this apple accord. So he's trying to use a lot of these synthetic fruity accords to add sweetness into the fragrances. And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit overdone. I feel like in Promise, this apple accord comes across as a little bit overly sweet to me. It doesn't come across as fresh and crisp. It comes across like a shisha, like an apple flavored shisha. But imagine the coal itself was scented with this apple accord and then heated as you start to smoke the shisha. And that is kind of the aroma that I get. It's not really a fragrance that I would say is a true representation of apple. I think they've tried to go down the road of, people lined up down the street smoking fruity shisha tobacco. This is actually something that Frederic Malle references in his description of The Moon, but I think you can also be added into this to the description of Promise, because that's really what I get. So the fragrance does transition, and you do get this rosy accord coming through. It's more rose syrup rather than anything too delicate. It's on the sweeter side again. This is actually quite a sweet fragrance, and I think actually the sweetness factor in this one is a little bit too much for me, to be honest. I'm not saying that the composition is not a good one. I definitely think it's a really well-made fragrance. I just feel like this sweet accord is just a little bit too much for me. It's just not to my personal taste, and it is a little bit overdone, I feel, recently in Frederic Malle's fragrances. But if you are into this kind of thing, I think you're really going to like Promise. The sweeter elements coming from the apple, the sweetness from the rose, the spiciness coming from the patchouli and the clove, and a little bit of leatheriness there, and a little bit of earthiness, creates some interesting transitions and some interesting accords in this fragrance. It doesn't develop a huge amount. The accords that I've mentioned and the notes that I've mentioned are all there and all noticeable, but that's pretty much what you get all the way through the scent. I wouldn't say it's one that changes and transforms as the hours go by. It's pretty much that forever, basically. So in summary, Frederic Malle's Promise is just a little bit too much. It starts off promising, but then this sweetness just kind of, I feel, is overdone in this fragrance, and I couldn't really get used to it. I didn't feel completely comfortable with this fragrance on my skin, but I can definitely appreciate it, that's for sure. My rating for this one is 8 out of 10. I think it's worth checking out, and if you have checked it out, maybe you own it, let me know your thoughts in the comments section, guys. It's always good to hear from you. So there you go, guys, my review on Frederic Malle's Promise. If you like this type of content, hit the like button and subscribe if you're interested. It's always good to hear from you guys, so yeah, whatever you have to say, say it. I'll see you in the comments section. And take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.